very exciting announcement to make. I'm here with Boris Kievsky from .org Strategy, and we just decided we're going to start a group for recovering performers who work in the nonprofit sector. So if you're in that group in the audience today, please do say something in the chat. What did you play? Were you an actor? Were you a comedian? Were you a clown performer, a circus performer? He's amazing. So, Boris, when our technical team fixes your audio, please feel free to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Louis. I am, as you said, Boris Kievsky of .org Strategy. My self-appointed title is Chief Storyteller and Nerd for Good. So I live at the intersection of story and technology, as you discovered earlier, and we are now going to start a support group. I am a recovering actor, writer, director, filmmaker, all of those things. My first incarnation was actually as a tech geek. So I started programming when I was 10 years old and sort of weaned off when I was about 21 and went into theater, got a couple of degrees in that, and then tried to support myself doing theater, film, and TV. But let's be honest, a lot of my habit was supported by the tech work that I was doing the whole time. And a little over 10 years ago now, I realized that it was not nearly as fulfilling playing the occasional Russian bad guy on TV as I hoped it would be. And
very so lots of vibe.
So I combined my passions for story and tech and doing something good for the world by going to work for nonprofits, and then spun my initial in-house gig into a consultancy. I still work with them. Have to get back to them on an email right now, actually, when we're done with this. And have since then taken on clients. And that's what .org Strategy is. It's my attempt to help organizations make the world a better place.
That's amazing. Well, you have no small mission in front of you. How do you do this? So I was really interested when I was reviewing your materials, and you and I spoke before, but in learning about how storytelling is such an important part of your practice. I wouldn't usually associate that with like the digital space. So how does that all come together?
Thank you for the softball question. So yeah, story works everywhere. Story's needed everywhere. Look, I mean, there's a graphic that I put up in my, as Louis pointed out, really expensive Manhattan real estate, that, story is the thing that connects your mission, your technology, and your donors, but also your clients, basically anyone that you want to connect to. Story is the best, really the only vehicle, whether we realize it or not, to make a connection from person to person, from mission to mission. If we can't tell a story, then we're going to form a story anyway. So when I was a much younger me and studying directing, we had this exercise where we were just asked to create 3 scenes, just visuals, a static image almost on stage. And then we were asked if we could connect the dots between the 3 scenes. And no matter what those scenes were, everyone could connect the dots. Our brains can't help it. We have to form a story out of data, out of inputs, let's just say, visual input in that case, where it was these images, or else we're going to forget it. It's not going to make sense. It's just how we're wired. There's a book, and if I'm rambling at any point, Louis, just cut me off.
Oh my goodness. No, this is fantastic stuff. And I thought we were going to talk about how to put a trick in your email to get more gifts. This is much more interesting.
Oh, we could do that too, but it all starts with this. Are you familiar with Yuval Harari and the book Sapiens? What is it called? Sapiens, A Brief History of Mankind, or something like that. I apologize to Yuval Harari, who, if he's listening to this show, then fantastic, you've already succeeded. But are you familiar with the book Sapiens?
No. I'm putting it up on the screen now for people to see.
Yeah, you should read it. Everyone should read it. It's just fascinating. But the only super relevant part to what we're talking about now is that he actually says that storytelling is part of our DNA. And I'm a geek. I read things for all kinds of reasons. I don't search for books that just talk about story, but obviously when I find things that reference it, it makes me very happy. And I quote him in every one of my presentations now. So we evolved to we survived basically through
Mhm.
storytelling. We are not the fastest, we are not the strongest. We may be the smartest, but only in really in a community sense. Like each
Uh-huh.
individual is not necessarily smarter than a shark, but together, because we could
Uh-huh.
tell stories and through stories empathize with each other, form trust, form bonds. That's why we were able to form communities, societies, and civilization as we know it, for better or worse, depending on how you feel about it right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully we can turn it. I mean, I think if we do have a problem right now is that we're not doing enough of the trust, the community, the
Yeah,
storytelling, probably,
yeah.
and kind
Well,
of, big stories that include us all, not just
yeah,
small
and
groups.
any superpower, could be used for good or evil. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you, let's get political real fast. But currently, Uncle Vlad in the great state of Russia or
Mhm.
country of Russia is currently telling his people some really outrageous stories about their own cousins in the country that I was born in order to
Mhm.
get them to fight against them for no good reason whatsoever.
Mhm.
My personal opinion, which I hope the majority of the world at this point shares. So storytelling can be used for good or evil. The better stories we tell, the more people we're going to rally, the more people we're going to get to empathize, and the more connections we're going to make. And most importantly, the more actions we're going to get people to take. So in Ukraine, the story is very simple right now. There's someone invading us and trying to take over, take away our liberties. That's why they've got so many people signing up, volunteering for the army. That's why there
Mhm.
are so many other nations that can empathize with that struggle and are
Mhm.
donating, giving
Yeah.
all of these billions of dollars worth of equipment, weapons, support equipment, logistics, whatever it might be.
Crypto. Crypto
Sure,
too.
crypto,
Yeah. Um,
absolutely, anything and everything.
But and I read that, oh my god, this is turning into a socio-political interview, but I apologize for that. But I did read that Ukraine is doing an incredible job with the storytelling on social media. President is communicator of the century.
Also a
So,
recovering actor.
oh, it's true. Oh my goodness. I read a comparison with Ronald Reagan. Um
He's better. He's younger, smarter, and speaks more languages. Let's just start with
well, but anyhow, this is so great. So let us say hi to Meredith, to Monica, and to Joey. They're so we're well represented here, East Coast mostly. It's early on the West Coast still. Um, so Boris, are you based out of New York, and who are your clients? Are they worldwide? Are they mostly stateside? Who do you typically work with?
Yeah. So to answer the first part of your question, I'm emotionally based out of New York.
Okay.
Uh, as far as homes go, and I've lived a lot of places, New York
Hmm.
is always home and it is the center of my gravitational field. But at the moment,
Hmm.
I am based in New Jersey, not too far from the city. So that answers that question, I hope. As far as where my clients are, a lot of them are on the East Coast, but when I started this endeavor of helping nonprofits, I was
Uh-huh.
actually a struggling actor, writer, director, all of those things out in LA. So I do still have LA clients and take on LA clients periodically. I have a few now. So I've got them all over and certainly all points in between in the US. And I am fortunate that I've been able to work with some organizations in Africa, in Eastern Europe, and in some other
Wow.
spots around the world. So I'm location agnostic. I'm not mission agnostic. I only
Mhm.
work with organizations whose missions I agree with and believe in. And I believe in everybody's right to pursue their mission, but I don't feel that I don't personally want to spend my time pursuing missions that don't fulfill me as a human being and don't fulfill my worldview as I want it to be.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'm sure you talk about purpose a whole lot, right? And you need to remain true to your own. Liz is, oh, look, West Coast. We were talking about that. So, Liz from Washington and Ian from Ontario, Canada. This is absolutely great. And I am here in Pennsylvania. So, we have a really good representation today. How you mentioned starting, let's kind of maybe dive deeper into the origin story. So you mentioned starting with clients in LA while you were still transitioning from being an actor. How, what type of work did you do then? And what type of work do you do now? I know now you're doing courses, you teach a university, you're doing all types of things, but how was that transition?
So when you say what type of work was I doing then, you mean when I first started working with nonprofits?
When you first started, exactly. Was it just, web design and you transitioned into more strategic, type of thinking? Because I really want to cover later on kind of that strategy piece, which I feel is very valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, and yes. When I was first looking for my first job as an adult, my first sort of corporate job, if you will, I had worked nights as an actor for major corporations, but I was a temp. I was trying to cobble together my experience, my expertise, and was fortunate enough to land an in-house job at a great nonprofit that allowed me to actually set my own title then too. And the title I set for myself was Manager of Online Communications and Engagement.
Oh, I love it.
So I was basically able to bring my passions, if not at that time yet expertise in nonprofit storytelling, but my passions for storytelling and the way to form stories and community. So going back to my early geek days, growing up with a name like Boris Kievsky in early 1980s Brooklyn was not easy, did not make me the popular kid, unless by popular you mean the one that the popular kids wanted to go start a fight with. So I was able to actually find communities online long before most people understood what online communities were, in BBSs that I used to host myself.
Oh my goodness. Beautiful.
or
GeoCities.
Before GeoCities, long before GeoCities.
Oh my goodness.
We're talking dial up into somebody else's computer where they had a bulletin board system run by one of a couple of different platforms. It was all ANSI code. Lewis, can you hear the fire alarm going off in my building, or is my noise canceling working?
I heard a shadow of it.
Okay.
Do we need to wrap this up?
No, it's the third time today. I'm pretty sure we're not actually going to burn down this time as opposed to the other two. So
exciting.
So yeah, I was a member of these communities. And I was privileged and lucky that I could find those things back then, because I couldn't find one in my neighborhood very often. I had a few friends and that was great, but when they were both sick, I was pretty bored. So I had to find other ways. And I love how technology can do that. I love how these days you could find a community around any passion, around any interest, around anything that you care about. There's chances are, in this world of 8+ billion people, another several 100,000 at least that care about it too.
Oh my goodness. So we're doing a course on video game fundraising, esports, and streaming. And the stuff I'm learning, there are communities around knitting. They just get together on Twitch and knit. These people know each other. So it's not like, it's not transactional. It's people that actually share a passion, right? And it's come all the way back from, so you were involved in kind of the beginning moments of that, and it's a trend that has just grown and grown and grown. It's not going anywhere. No, I mean, is this what you think?
Absolutely. And so I was really fortunate to be able to find a job and help define the job to figure out how to help that organization with its digital presence using storytelling and form some communities around the work that they're doing. So yeah, I was helping them with their websites, with their social media, with their newsletter, with their content writing, all of that kind of stuff.
But all of that is just a tool, a symptom of what you're really trying to get at, which is the forming of the community, right? A conversation. I don't know if we had it when we last spoke on your podcast, Boris, but the difference between an audience and a community, right? Lots of people use those same tools, but they're trying to build an audience for the nonprofit, no?
Yeah. So obviously, I use somewhat different language, but yeah, there's a big difference between an audience. Like if you're looking for vanity metrics for how many subscribers you have or how many followers you have, and look at the audience we reach, great. That's great. If all you're trying to do is get some word out there and get people to virtue signal or to just click a like button every now and then, that's fantastic. But community is in my language, those are the heroes, right? So my podcast,
Mhm.
which I do hope to bring back sometime soon, is called the Nonprofit Hero Factory. As a nonprofit,
Amazing.
your goal is to not be a hero, is to make heroes out of potential heroes in your world, right? To go bigger than community, because you could have multiple communities. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
they're not part of your community until they become a hero, and vice versa. They're not heroes until they become part of your community. Louis, are you there? Can't tell if my computer froze or if yours did. If you guys are still hearing me in the chat here, can you drop something to say, hey, Boris, we still hear you? What is going on? Okay, yeah. Thank you, guys. His froze. Lewis's froze. All right. Oh, I was just going to take over the show, Lewis, but you're back.
That, I mean, we wouldn't have expected less from you. Turn it into the Boris Kievsky hour.
There you go.
Sorry about that, everybody. But oh my goodness, this was I love it how you take, you start with the goal, which I read a little bit in between the lines, is what you still do in your courses, where it seems to me, and please do correct me, right? But where you have people think about what their strategy is, and I think this is a little bit of what that strategy, and then you go back to the tools and to the putting them all together.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no limit of tools that are available to us, on the webs these days. And
Mhm.
websites can do myriad things, both simultaneously and in specific silos. So people tend to throw a lot at the audience and hope that
Mhm.
something sticks without first thinking through the strategy of, well, what's our mission?
Mhm.
What is it going to take for us to achieve our mission in terms of actual actions that people can take? And
Mhm.
then who are the people that are going to take those actions on our behalf? Only then can you actually get to what's the story we need to tell these particular people
Yeah.
to get them to resonate with our mission and take the very specific steps that we want them to take so that they become heroes and our mission gets one step closer to completion, to achievement, I guess.
Okay, so a lot of what we talk about in the donor participation project is related to the rank and file experience of the fundraiser that may not be the VP of fundraising or communications or marketing. And what these roles, and I've been in them, these roles often experience is that even if they have a clear vision for these things, the organization is all over the place. So there's a president, a board, several VPs, and that's maybe 4 different opinions on what that story is that should be told. And then maybe they have different business goals. So there's a fundraising, maybe there's a paid service, the hospital, orchestra, and then it's like everybody both against each other and throwing tons of messages at the donors. How can you help? Help us.
So yeah, that's an unfortunately all too common problem. The number of websites I visit and donate is the first and biggest thing you see. And you know exactly who made that decision. That was developed. And I totally understand why. And yet they don't understand the harm that it's doing. When you ask someone to, back in my day when we would
Today is
date.
your day.
Today's still my day, yeah. But today, for example, you meet someone on an app, you both swipe right. If the first thing you message is, do you want to get married this evening? Chances are you're going to lose them, right? And that's the same thing as putting that big donate thing up there. So, yeah, everybody does need to get pardon the pun, on the same page, whether it's a digital page or a written page. And that does take some work. That does take some strategic thinking and alignment. That does take some understanding of how are we going to achieve our mission, because we are a mission-based organization. We are not a fundraising-based organization, even though that is vital lifeblood to the organization, obviously. We are not a preaching to the choir or to the masses, shouting from the rooftops organization. We are an organization that's trying to change the world in a very specific way. So when I work with big picture strategy, not just specific website storytelling, although honestly, it really applies to all of it. It's just a matter of how many stakeholders do we get on board in the process and co-op. But the big picture strategy has to start with, again, just that. What's our mission? What are the steps it's going to take? Who are the people that are going to take those steps? And what are the stories we need to tell them? Now that we know that, let's put our entire organization's story into a cohesive, and since I spent so much time out in LA, I go by the Hollywood storytelling framework. It adapts very nicely. And we know it works because it rakes in a few $1 billion a year. So something's got to be working. Mind you, not every movie is successful, obviously, but those formulas, those templates, those strategies, they work. So let's get everybody along for the same story and tell the big picture. And then here's the fun part. You don't have to tell all the stories at once. You could turn this into a choose your own adventure. All avatars are not interested in taking all the same actions. So once you have them empathizing or connecting with your overall story, now you could give them different ways that they become heroes for your cause. And so everybody has their opportunity. And once you get them along far enough, that's when you start asking them. So first you ask them for a small action, then a bigger action, then a bigger action. Exactly. Gradually work them up the ladder of engagement, of commitment, of community, to the point where they're comfortable not just being a donor, but being a champion, being a fundraiser, being a board member for your organization.
Exactly. But you don't start with that because it can even be counterproductive. No, that big donate button. Pop up, modal thing right in your face.
What it instantly tells me is you don't care about me, you just care about my money.
We talk about that so much. That's so interesting. That's how we're doing. So does anybody here have questions for Boris? I'm finding this conversation incredible. So while we still have Boris and his beautiful perspective on all these fundraising issues, which I feel are kind of common sense, but then always somehow get lost in the day to day. And in the meantime, what portions right now of helping people, what different ways do you help people think through this and then implement it? So I know there's some training, what else happens in .org strategy?
I work with organizations at through different modalities, let's just say at different engagements, depending on what it is that they need. I start, oftentimes people come to me because they've got a question about their website and they'll start with that, but you pull that string and it'll unravel and unravel and unravel depending on how long you're willing to pull it. So it really depends on what an organization needs. Ideally, I love to come in with an organization when they're rethinking their strategy and their storytelling, or they're just getting started. I'm just wrapping up an engagement with a client that I'm very impressed with them, with the team and what they're trying to do out in the world. They're great. And so we started with these fundamentals of what's the story. And then we worked our way out to, okay, how are we going to then tell it on social media? How are we then going to tell it on the website? How are we going to take the bulk of the storytelling lift off of the communications people so that they're not feeling constantly overwhelmed and make it easy for them to tell those stories throughout their channels? and then convert those audiences into community members, into action takers and heroes for their cause. So that's kind of the big picture consulting, excuse me,
Yeah.
consulting package that I do, and I work with them to define their avatars and their goals and all of that kind of stuff. But then I do build websites. I'm about to launch a learning management site where
Awesome.
an organization can do online courses for their constituents to help them achieve more in their own mission, right? This is something that I talk to a lot of organizations about when we're looking at what's your mission and what are the ways that we could fulfill it. A lot of organizations overlook what they could do digitally. They think they need to do the hand-to-hand combat, and it's absolutely critical in a lot of
Yeah.
situations. But there's also that mass reach, that leverage that you could get through the web
Yeah.
that is unparalleled when it comes to one-to-one or even one-to-many in an in-person situation that can
I
still
have a
help you.
story about that. You're totally right.
So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your story. Just to finish answering your question, I kind of do it all. I help organizations figure out their story, their technology, and how to merge the two best, depending on what they need at that time. And if they need help actually implementing, then yes, I do that too.
That's amazing. I'm kind of wishing I'd met you sooner in one of my nonprofit roles. I do hope the world makes it so that we can work together. But okay, the story and then Ian's question, because I think you've struck a nerve with the donate button. I mean, the crusade against the donate button, we're going to call this. We should have titled the session today. So the story is we're having the donor participation project. I wanted to float the idea of having chapters, geographically based chapters. So I thought the LA people could meet, the New York people could meet. So we're on a call, we're talking about this, and I was assuming they wanted to meet in person. And then when I say, well, okay, let's schedule this, well, let's find a place to host this, and they're like, oh no, like we want to meet on Zoom. It's too inconvenient to meet in person. So I mean, really, what Zoom and what the kind of pandemic has opened is kind of a new world of reach for even very meaningful relationships that can happen. So that what you said resonated. Just like don't discount digital.
Absolutely. And don't discount the other ways that digital can work for you besides just broadcasting your message. Give people value in various different ways in whatever is going to help them become better champions for your cause, better empowered in their own lives, right? It could just be viewing your videos, but it could also be doing some interactive exercises. It could also be being part of a Facebook community or a regular Zoom call, right? With others who are in similar situations to themselves, sort of a support group, maybe not just for recovering actors and performers. You say you wanted to get people together, and you mentioned one of the chapters is in LA. As someone who dealt with LA traffic for 10 years, I get not wanting to go.
So we want to meet people that we know are around us, but we don't actually want, feel the pressing need to be together in the room.
And at some point, they might change their minds, depending on how the pandemic is going and restrictions are going, but also depending on their own connection to each other within that group. If they form close enough bonds, they're going to ask themselves, can we all get together in person? Hey, I'd love to catch up and really get to know these folks. So it is a lower threshold of commitment. And that goes back to what we were talking about, to sign up and attend a Zoom meeting than it is to get dressed, in LA, that gets more complicated than necessary probably. Get dressed, get in your car, drive through traffic for however long to whatever side of town everybody decided was most convenient to everyone, which means least convenient to anyone. Get together, drive back, all of that, right? It's a lot more work
Getting
than
a
me
headache.
just going, okay, I'm going to hop on Zoom.
You're totally right. So I think, lesson learned for me, but also for nonprofits. Lots of really good questions in here. Okay, so the donation button controversy here, what would you call it? And, who, I'm going to add an addendum to Ian's question is like, when and to whom would you show it to? Donate button.
I'm going to contradict myself a little bit.
Okay.
I am perfectly happy with, and in fact, I think every organization should have a donate button in their header at that
Mm-hmm.
top right position. I'm not sure if my camera's mirrored or what, but at that top right
Mm-hmm.
position in their menu bar, have your donate button.
Okay.
Don't expect anyone to click it, but
Mm-hmm.
have it.
Yeah.
And why? So first, have it because it is a quick indicator that yes, you are a nonprofit. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
you depend on heroes stepping up to support your cause so that you can help them and help your clients in various ways become more empowered and make the world a better place. So as a signal, it is absolutely critical. What I rail against, what I
Mm-hmm.
what I tilt my lance at is the banner image when you first land. Hey, we do great work, but we need your help. Donate now.
Mm-hmm.
That is very off-putting to someone who just discovered your cause, just discovered your
Mm-hmm.
site. Maybe I was Googling for something, maybe I saw something on social media, maybe somebody forwarded me something, and the first thing I get is, give me money.
Or
Well,
you
I
sign
don't.
up for a newsletter and you start getting those fundraising emails. Uh-huh.
Well, the newsletter is a little bit different. That's at least a step further. So if the first thing I see is give me money, then I'm going to say no. I don't know you yet. Why would I give you money? You're just some random organization. You're not even a person. We have no relationship, no connection, and you want money from me? No, I'm sorry. I've got other things I could do with my money. Clicks
Mm-hmm.
back to Amazon. However, if you have guided me through a journey, you have told me a story in which I can become a hero, have connected with me, gotten my empathy, gotten my dopamine going, gotten my oxytocin flowing, gotten all of those, we could talk about neurotransmitters. Now, go ahead and ask me to take an action. And I do see a hierarchy in these. The lowest point of action is really just scroll down. Second
Mm-hmm.
is going to be click a button to go see something else. Third might be give me your email address. Now, my email address is worth money to me. I
Mm-hmm.
have hundreds, literally hundreds of emails a day. I do not need another newsletter. I do not. However, if you are promising me value, if you've given me value in a story and are promising me more value in a newsletter, and you spell out what that promise is, then I might give you my email address. Otherwise, I'd rather give you $1 to just go away. So if I've now signed up for your newsletter, as you're saying, now it's still too early to ask me to donate. I have just given you something, which is my email address. If you're going to instantly ask me for even more, I'm going to say, okay, I see how this relationship works. It's one way. It's all take, and I've got to give.
Mm-hmm.
However, if in that newsletter you nurture me, you show me the value that I can bring to the world, not to your organization necessarily, to the world through your organization as the tool. If you show me the impact, and if you show me that I am a valued member of a community or a
Mm-hmm.
potential that I have great potential as a hero over time, now I'm much more primed to donate. And maybe I will if you've got a good enough sequence. At the least, keep me coming back in that newsletter, keep me connected to your work, keep telling me those stories so that when it's time and there is something pressing, you can hit that button, you can trigger the, emergency effect if you need to, and
Mm-hmm.
get some support from me in a financial way.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the job advice, no? The best time to network is when you don't need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's this, I mean, it's just human nature. This is so great. And it's funny that you're coming at all these fundraising insights from, a different angle than maybe, my career has been more kind of on the individual giving, major gifts, trying to apply that to the masses. And we really landed very close together. It's kind of beautiful. Another question here, sometimes I don't get the name. So I think it's from Monica. So one of the challenges is identifying folks who engage with general communications so that advancement can work with them as volunteers or giving prospects. So take them up that engagement ladder that you were talking about. So I think this speaks to the silos. So, okay, your strategy sounds great, but what if people aren't playing well internally? Then we end up not knowing where people are, and
All the
so
time.
then kind of default to the blast. So that's one problem, and we'd love to hear your thoughts about that. And then she says, I'm not sure I understand this. The challenge of scrubbing, not sure if this is the right word, the data from social media and websites to identify folks in order to avoid spending tons of staff time. I guess it's identifying who that person is to see if it's worthwhile to follow up. And maybe Monica can clarify. But do you have thoughts about those two issues?
I have thoughts about everything. Whether they're valuable to you, that's another question.
I'm finding them very valuable. I hope people here do too. And if you're tuning in today, like hit one of those reaction buttons just to let us know whether we're going in the right direction. That would be fantastic. Thank you.
So, Monica, assuming that that is who posed these questions, I hear you, I feel you, pardon the the colloquialism, and I understand the pain. The reality is all of your teams should be working together. They should be on the same page so that when comms slash marketing sends something out, the goal is to get that person out there in the interspheres to come back and raise their hand as someone who is interested. You shouldn't have tons of data to scrub through, whatever the word that is more accurate. You should have data of this person is at this stage of their engagement journey with us. And so if someone liked something on social media, well, that's great. Go ahead and invite them to follow your page. Fantastic. The goal of social media pieces should be to get them to preferably come over to your website, but in some way or other commit to you on a higher level. And that is giving you their email address. You don't own your newsletter. Yeah, I'm sorry. You don't own your social media subscribers, your social media followers. Facebook does, LinkedIn does, Pinterest does, Instagram does, not you. And they could change the rules on how you could access them at any given time. Also, I hate to say it, but we all know Facebook doesn't care about your organization. Facebook cares.
Really?
I know, but they do this great Giving Tuesday help, and they let me do peer-to-peer fundraisers. They must be really altruistic. Said no one ever. They want eyeballs, and they want to keep those eyeballs on their site. And they want to control how much it costs for anyone to get access to those eyeballs. You are the commodity on Facebook. Your eyeballs and attention are what Facebook sells to other people. So do they want those eyeballs to then go to another site? Do they want those eyeballs to stick too long on any one piece of content? No, they want to get that next ad up because that's what's going to pay their bills. So your goal is to break that chain, to take them. There's a concept in marketing of a red ocean and blue ocean. Are you familiar with that one, Louis?
Yeah.
Facebook, all social media is very much red ocean. It is a bunch of sharks in a feeding frenzy for those eyeballs. And that's why the ocean is red with blood. Your goal is to get people into a blue ocean where it's calmer, where you can control the conversation a little bit more, the story a little bit more, the engagement, and get people to take actions. So, Monica, I'm not sure if I'm 100% answering what you're saying, but if your communications and marketing team is doing a cohesive job, and I want to say their job right, I'm not trying to criticize anybody, but if they're doing a cohesive job with the overall strategy, then they're trying to drive people into your impact funnels where you get them, they encourage them to take actions that raise their hand and put them on that engagement ladder so that you know, okay, this person is new to us and they have not yet donated. Now we're going to reach out to them for that first donation. They are someone who is capable of donating this much or that much at this point in their journey. Now, if you happen to get a billionaire who clicks through, and I promise you most billionaires are not clicking on anything on social media. They've got teams to do that. But let's say you've got that proverbial white whale that you attracted. Yes, eventually you want to get them on a phone call. But if you start asking everybody who comes to your website, and I see this, for their phone number, you're not going to get anyone because no one wants to be called by an organization they don't know and trust yet. So work them up slowly and gently. Let them choose their own adventure. Let them see what they're comfortable doing at any given point. On your donate page, hopefully you don't have just one option, give us $20. You've got a series of options, and I talk about how to anchor so that people tend to go for a slightly larger number than they expected, how to tell the story so that they go to a larger number than maybe they initially thought, right? But you give them options, and you give them different donor size problems so that depending on the size of the donor, and by that, of course, it's their ability to spend that money to make the world a better place through your work. That's where you're going to start really segmenting them and funneling them into larger development projects, perhaps, or running them through those databases that I know are out there where you could see approximately what that person is capable of giving, which is very I know it's necessary a lot of times, but I've spoken to some big pocket donors, and it makes them a little bit uneasy to know that people are targeting them because they know what they're capable of. Just because someone's capable, and I'm going to stop rambling now, but just because someone's capable doesn't mean they're willing if you haven't earned that relationship.
Engagement, trust, all of that all over again. So this resonates so much. I work with a company called Alma Base that's a lot about engagement, and we're actually have a model where you go from lurker to contributor, and it's exactly the same philosophy. And you don't ask the lurkers for money. I mean, you can, but your probabilities of not being successful or even having a negative result are much higher. This makes a lot of sense. We have a few minutes left, and Boris, I know your time is valuable, and Mary has a really interesting question. She says, could you please describe the Hollywood story framework you mentioned?
Sure, absolutely. Do we have 5 hours?
No, but
Okay.
do you have like the 2x, do we have like the 4x thing where you can just speak really quickly?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm from the East Coast, so I could do it. Ready? No, the Hollywood storytelling framework is essentially this. You have to guide a hero through a journey. That journey begins, and pardon my theatrics here, but in a world where something is wrong, one person, man, woman, whatever gender they prefer, has to stand up and take action, right? Every trailer used to begin that way at some point in the 80s. That's why it's stuck in my brain, because I'm a child of the 80s, as I said. So the story begins with a world in which something is wrong and someone needs to take action. Now, there's a lot wrong in every world. However, if in the beginning of the story of Star Wars Episode 4, Luke Skywalker was told, hey, go fight Darth Vader, he would not have done it. No matter how much he supported the rebellion and wanted to do something with his life, he would have been scared out of his tight pants, right? That was not an action that he could have taken. However, when a certain droid comes to him and shows him a projection of, unbeknownst to him, his sister, Princess Leia, no spoilers, I hope, for anybody at this point, and he hears that he needs to find Obi-Wan Kenobi, well, that's something he can do. That's someone on his own planet, not very far away, doesn't take anything except a little bravery to cross past the Tusken Raiders and the Jawas, right? Mm-hmm. So what is the very first smallest thing that the hero can do to get on this journey? Now, once they're on it, we begin really Act 1. So Act 1 is all about getting them to take that first step, that very first action that raises their hand. Act 2 is where we see all of the challenges and how your organization helps them overcome those challenges, where you really become Obi-Wan Kenobi, becomes the mentor to Luke Skywalker and helps him learn to be a Jedi, get off planet in the first place because, the droids are being hunted and these are not the droids you're looking for, right? Helps him overcome all of those things on his way to becoming a Jedi. That's all Act 2, with a lot of success and dangers that keep piling up and piling up. We're working up that ladder of engagement, that ladder of commitment, till we get to Act 3. In Act 3, the hero must fight for everything that they believe in, and their belief and investment in this story, in your mission at this point, is everything. It is now a matter of life and death, and they're willing to put their lives on the line. Not only that, but Luke can't do it alone. Harry Potter can't do it alone. No individual hero, heroine can do it alone. They recruit all of their friends to help them as well. Because the fate of the world, or what they believe the world should be, is at stake. Essentially, that's the Hollywood storytelling framework. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3.
That's great. This is the most fun I've had well, I mean, except for the gaming project that we're doing this week. But I was riveted and like bolted to my chair. This was so fascinating. Dan, who's a dear colleague and an expert himself, mostly, with a lot of expertise in direct mail. He's asking, how does this apply to direct mail, to this storytelling, online storytelling formula?
Absolutely. Storytelling applies to everything that you communicate on any platform or from your mouth to someone else in person. Storytelling applies everywhere, whether you realize it or not. And if you don't realize it, then you might not be using it to its full advantage. You might even be making mistakes that unfortunately is going to set back your mission and your ability to engage heroes. So I don't personally focus on direct mail. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on it, but I have written enough content that has gone out as direct mail as well, because it's very similar stories. The difference is the interactivity and the choose your own adventure part of the direct mail. Now, you could still give people options of what to do in direct mail. You could also drop them a QR code or a very easy link so that they can go back to the website if necessary. But by the time someone gets a piece of direct mail, hopefully they're already well primed for the ask. So all you need to do at that point is tell them a good story, show them the impact that they could make, right? They are somewhere already past Act 1. They have already decided to become a hero by that point, hopefully. And now you're just getting them to take whatever biggest action you could get them to be comfortable taking.
Well, and I think a little bit of this is also, if you're mailing your Act 1 people, maybe ask them to do other things through mail that are at the Act 1 level, right? Just don't ask them.
Don't ask them, for a legacy gift if they've only donated to you once online, and now you're first of all, be very careful about that transition, breaking that wall between digital and print engagement. Some of us do take offense at it if all of a sudden you're mailing me and I didn't give you permission to do so. So do be careful with that in the first place. But if I donated to you once and now you're sending me, a mailer about becoming a legacy donor or something along those lines, right? You've jumped several steps ahead of me, and I'm not ready. Again, it's asking for too much in a relationship before the other person has reached that point. So your direct mail lists are hopefully very well segmented too, so you know who's a recurring donor, and you're not treating them as someone who's donating for the first time. And you know who is a first-time donor, and you're not asking them for something that they're not comfortable yet giving.
This was amazing, Boris. So now we're going to go into the Link Festival portion of the session. If you want to connect with Boris right here on LinkedIn, reach out to him. I can guarantee that he's very nice and responsive, and will try to help if he possibly can, or go to his website. And there's a podcast, Nonprofit Hero Factory. There are courses, lots of good materials there. If you want to be the hero in your own professional development story and learn how to play video games, everybody knows how to play video games, how to fundraise through video games, build community, and help make your donors be a part of this, which is pretty fun and can be a great new way to fundraise. Join the course this week and our regular programming right here. We hope to see you again. And Boris, we're tremendously grateful for the time you spent with us.
Thanks, Louis. Can I plug a couple of quick specific things?
Oh my goodness, yes. Put links up, everything.
I'm not sure how to drop links in
Send
here.
them to me. I'll take care of it, but you can talk about it.
It's pretty straightforward, though. I am starting, I taught a course last in February at NYU, and I'm teaching it again in September. In a couple of weeks, it's starting. It is how to develop high impact websites for nonprofits. It is part of a certificate program. If you want to go for the full certificate, great. If not, you just want to take that course. I am happy to share some of the testimonials. The students were really happy with it. And we go through this entire formula as specifically to how to apply it to a website to get people to take these actions. You could find that at .orgstrategy.com/NYU. That'll redirect you to the course sign-up page where you can see that. And if you guys are interested in avatars or a lot of the resources that I have available to people in general are up on .orgstrategy.com/resources. You could download all kinds of templates, worksheets, whatever it is that you're looking for. And if you want further help, I am always happy to take a free call. And if there's something further I could do, I am always happy to talk to people about how I can help them make this world a better place.
I mean, just be careful with Boris because he owns the most expensive apartment in New York, which we can see in his background. So I'm totally joking. This is going to be wonderful. I invite everybody to reach out to you.
I have to be able to afford my virtual rent. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks again. And hope to stay in touch with you. And have a great one.
Thanks so much, Louis. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. I really appreciate everybody's time and the questions that prod me to, talk even longer. Always happy to do that. Gets my old stage needs met. So thank you so much, Louis, for having me today.
It's gone both ways. Have a good one.